And you're listening to KPAI. I'm going to interrupt George Strait here and his fireman song because I'm on my lunchtime here, but I have a guest to speak to and interview. It is the county commissioner candidate for, I'm not even sure what position it is, but he's running against Barry Schulenberger. Is that which one? Position one. And it's Ed Mudd. Hello, Ed. How are you doing today?
Hey, great. Thanks a lot for having me on board, and everything's great.
All right.
At the moment.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming in. We are live. I just want everybody to know that. It says KPAI. I'm Stu Burgess. And let's just start with some background. What brought you here to Oregon and got you to the point where you want to run for county commissioner?
Well, I started out living in Southern California, and by the time I had left, I retired from the VA in Long Beach, California, and when I retired, the writing was pretty much on the wall that things aren't going too rosy here, or things weren't too rosy where I was living at in Corona, California, so I decided to move to Lakeview, and that took a little bit of time to look for a place to live, and then a couple of years later we had COVID, and that was a disaster in itself, and thank God I was here when that happened. So it was kind of like it was a projection of looking into the future, and I had made the determination to get out of Dodge.
Okay. And then what made you decide to run for county commissioner?
Well, some of the things that we have seen over the past years is the multitude of fires, wildfires, and we believe, a lot of folks that I've talked to believe that if we bring back the timber industry, that we can cut down on those emissions being thrown up into the air, and we can clean our forest up, and we can have a reasonable habitat for creatures to live there without it getting burned down.
And then that would have an economic impact also.
Yes, there would be a huge economic impact, or at least we believe that there would be by the timber industry coming back, and then there would be taxes. There would be other forms of funding coming from the timber industry, which jobs, and it would have a trickle-down effect, cascading effect, where individuals that were, being paid would now live in the area, send their kids to school, which means they would be buying homes, going to shops, spending money, and this is all good for the community. Then infrastructure would have to be created as well.
Okay. So we just talked to the kids a little bit ago, and you talked a lot about how you're kind of your big agenda, let's call it, is to bring the timber industry back. How about other parts of our county, like solar? How do you feel about the solar industry that's growing here in our county?
Solar only brings... Okay, this is based upon my education at California State University, Long Beach. Solar brings only 1% to 2% of what the country needs as a whole. Am I against solar? No, I am not against solar. Solar is a good thing. I have a solar freezer which operates off of a solar panel and a battery. Now, it works great for me at home. As far as the county putting up solar farms, I'm not sure about that. I have not been educated enough in that area, which would allow me to be an authority as to what is good or what is bad. Now, I have spoke to some folks over at the courthouse which deal with the funding that comes in from solar panels, and they said that that is a great source of income for the county. I'm not 100% sure about that. It could or it could not be. I don't know. I'm not sitting behind that desk to where I can have all the information in front of me to see if it's viable or not viable. My bigger question would be, what do the individuals of Lake County get out of those solar panels? Do they get a reduction in their electricity bill? Or does the electricity get shipped off to California? If that happens, I don't see how the county is helping the people.
Except for the tax revenue.
Well, the tax revenue, yeah, and
Yep.
fees and other stuff of that nature. Yeah.
And most of the jobs that are going to be created in building that are going to be gone once they get it built, too. So
Right.
it's not something like timber that you'll always be recutting trees.
Right. Yeah. So there's always, if we get the timber industry coming back, which would be a great thing, there's going to be a lot of funding, not just through taxes, but all the timber that's cut. And I'm not talking just about pine trees, but we're also talking about juniper, which can get turned into, use your imagination, chips for your gardening. Also, the posts. And a few other things that come out of that. We discovered that some of the slash and other materials that come from the timber can be turned into fertilizer. It gets mulched up, and they added some sort of chemical to it. I'm not 100% sure about that. This has just been brought to my attention over the last couple of weeks, that they can turn a lot of that stuff into fertilizer.
Is that harmful?
I should mention your chair of your committees here, and that's
Yes.
fine. But we only have 2 microphones, so if you do hear a voice in the background, what's your name again? I forgot.
Loma.
Loma Wharton.
Okay, so and if you want to grab the mic at any time, like I said, you can do that. So as far as how long do you think it would take to go from and you talked a lot about how to open up the forest more, and you can talk about that if you want, but how long do you think it'd take from saying we're going to go into the forest and create these jobs until it actually happens?
Okay. Well, you have to remember that it's going to take 2 commissioners to vote on taking back the county's jurisdiction, which will give the county the authority to open up the forests. Right now, the county is not under its own jurisdiction. They believe that they are beholden to Salem, which they will take their instructions from Salem as to when and what can and cannot be open.
For the Fed, too.
And also, that would also include the Fed.
So you're talking state lands, federal. There's federal lands that BLM manages,
Right.
And then there's state forests.
Right. So if we take back our jurisdiction, we're basically telling both those entities, thank you for your help. If we need you, we will call you, okay? But like I said, it's going to take 2 commissioners to vote back our jurisdiction, and then from there, what we can do is start to open that parameter of being able to call in companies to pardon me?
To do the work.
To do the work, right? So how long is it going to take? Well, I guarantee you it's going to take at least 2 years before we get another commissioner that's on the same plane as I am, all right? Then it's going to probably take a few more months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, I don't know. But once we build it, they will come.
So I have a friend that has worked in the logging industry his whole life, and his dad actually had the company before him. He is incredibly frustrated now with getting workers, people that will show up, because to cut the trees down, you get up early.
Yep.
And you get in a crummy and you go out and you start logging. He says half the time on a Monday morning they don't even show up, half the crew, and then even when they do show up, they work for a little while, found out it's a hard job, and they're out. They quit.
Right.
So how are you going to get the workers?
I worked over at the Warner Creek prison for a while, and I helped a young man who made a mistake, and he was in there, and he was extremely worried about when he got out that he was going to end up back in there. And I said, well, what are your skills? He doesn't have any skills. What's your education? He doesn't have any real education. I said, are you prepared to work hard if I could find something for you? And he said yes. So I got a hold of another AIC, which is adult in custody, and he worked in the forestry. And I said, this young fellow's getting out. I need you to try and find me somebody who could put him in the forestry with no education and be able to put him back to work. He came up with 3 names, 3 companies. I gave that information to him. He ended up getting a hold of them, and as far as I know, he is out there working. So what it takes is the proper people to help somebody who wants to work to go out there and work.
So part two of my friend, what he does now is he said, my most reliable workers are migrant workers. So he hires Mexicans, basically. And he says they show up every day and they work hard. Do you think we would get an influx of migrants here in Lake County if we open up the mills again?
That's hard for me to say because I don't know. It's a hard thing to, you know what? We have a lot of our own people that need to work. But if they're not...
will they work? Because there's
not
a lot of people in Lakeview.
If they're not prepared to do the work, then we have to go to an alternative source. Okay?
I could give you a list of people that just would rather get a handout than work, which is sad.
That is. But that would probably be something that we could look at in the county charter when we create a county charter, that somebody who's drawing off the county for their dole money or whatever you want to call it, you have to be able to go out and work, even if it's part-time.
How about, we'll get to some other issues. How about now? We've had years of drought off and on. Since I moved here, we actually have, one good year, and then maybe this year's going to be good. Looks like maybe. How do you feel about the farmers and how they have to deal with drought? Any ideas of how we can help farmers out or ranchers?
I had a small ranch in Lakeview, and I've been through the drought. And let me tell you, when that pond is not full of water, you're sweating bullets, going like, oh, well, I've got all this grass that I got to get going here. It's got to grow. So I think what the water users is doing is probably a good thing, where they limit a certain amount of water to each individual farm or wherever they're growing hay at. And that isn't because they want to do that. It's because they have to conserve the water to the point where there's enough to go around. I think that some of the ideas of some of the canals, some of the ditches need to be worked, and I think the water users are doing that right now as far as maintaining those ditches. Where before they were in disrepair, now I believe that they are getting those ditches repaired to where they work a little bit more efficiently, where we don't have a lot of runoff, okay? And I think, let's face facts. If it doesn't snow or rain enough, then you're just going to be out of water, and there's not much you can do about it.
And I think going back to what you're saying earlier, if we manage our forests, we'll have a watershed that's more healthy, I think,
right.
Also.
Right.
What about, so the county was looking at a landfill that would actually be a landfill. It's a company that would build it, and it would be for 4 to 6 counties that would bring their landfill here. That would make a profit, but what do you think about that idea?
You know what? It's like, what is the profit? It's only going to be supposedly 30 people that are going to be working there. What the bigger issue is what are they projecting for the next 5 years or the next 10 years? What type of industry are they bringing in besides this one entity? All right. Is it a good thing? Well, it's going to be really good for somebody to come and dump their trash in our backyard. How do the residents of that area feel about all that garbage coming here? Now, I'm not saying that the dump is a bad idea. I'm just saying, did the people have more of an input and voice as to, do they want it there or do they not want it there? And that's what I'd be going with. Do the people want it or they don't want it? What is the impact going to be on the area? How's it going to affect the natural animals that live there? Is there going to be any impact at all? What was the impact study done on it? Was there one done? Or is it like, we're just going to open this big pit up and start dumping everybody's trash in it?
Yeah. What about...
Wait a minute. We got to...
The prime example of other counties coming in and putting their trash in here is Douglas County, Oregon. They did that. I don't recall how many other counties brought their county in, paid the county to dump their trash. Their landfill is over full now, and they have to find another place to make one.
and they have to keep managing the one that's there too,
Yes.
even though it's full. All right. How about let's get to the budget. Obviously, in the last few weeks, we found out that our county is in some budget issues. Speaking with Barry Schulenberger, your opponent, he said that we lost revenue, and they have started to cut positions. They froze the COLA on a lot of people, including himself. That was a misprint in the newspaper that the county commissioners also froze their COLA. And they couldn't do it on union people or department heads. But Darwin, the planning department head, he now is going to be the code enforcer, and he's got now 3 different jobs. So they are cutting some spending. What do you have to say about how we got here into this situation and what you would do if you were a commissioner?
All right. That's a great question. And unfortunately, I don't think by freezing COLA is enough. If I were a commissioner that helped, I would try to think of a better way of dealing with the problem. And I know these guys are going to say, what are you thinking when I say they should take a 50% cut in pay to help the commissioners to help pay for the mistakes that have been made. Now, I'm not saying that the commissioners are bad people. They're probably really nice people. But in my opinion, they have made a few mistakes. When we talk about the Ruby Pipeline, failure. Red Rock, failure. Tallgrass Energy, failure. And they were depending on this funding to come in to help support the county and their coffers. Okay, it didn't happen. All right, so when you're talking about what happened, I'm not sitting behind that desk, and I don't have all that information in front of me to be able to make a sound judgment as to where they went completely wrong. Okay, I would open up, like I said, I would open up the gates, build it, and they will come. So if we're talking about a toothpick factory, and I'm just using that as a prop.
Start small, right?
Start small, then we'll work big. Matchsticks are next, because everybody uses matchsticks around here when you light the fire in the stove. All right, so these are some of the ideas that I have. Not necessarily they have to be those ideas, but I have other friends in other parts of the country who might be able to step up and say, hey, look, we might be able to help you out by bringing this company up here. Or we have individuals interested in coming up here. So again, it goes like kind of right back to what we were talking about, the lumber industry coming here. We're going to invite other companies to come here and set up shop.
So I asked you earlier when you were talking to the kids, are you willing to give tax breaks to get companies to move here?
That's a hard pill to try and swallow, because this county is, according to the treasurer, this is the most depressed county in the state. And if that's true, and based upon what I'm seeing, it looks like it's pretty true, I would have to really sit down and see how much of a break we can give them, okay? But we're starving for money. We need money because we're in a bit of a jam.
So how about, so there are 2 towns or cities in Lake County, but Christmas Valley is a lot bigger than Paisley. How do you feel about Christmas Valley area or North Lake area being incorporated into an actual governing city?
Their own separate city?
Yeah, right now they have commissions for health commission type thing, and they have the Parks Commission, but there's no city council above those.
That's their choice.
You think, okay.
And Loma brings up a valid point. This is something that the citizens of that area need to vote on. All right? They would put a petition together, and then they would vote on it.
But there are issues out there like sewer and housing. Like there's just a lot of trailers out there, and then they kind of leave them when they leave, and they just rot. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that's because there's no city to manage that type of stuff. Do you think the county commissioners should do a better job of that?
Yeah.
I believe that it would be very good for them to try and clean that up.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot of other questions, but a couple more, and then I'll let you just tell us what other things you think about. But one question is, it is a big issue everywhere you go, and that's fentanyl. What can the county do to try to control, to keep that out of our county?
That's a real good question, because a lot of fentanyl is coming through the southern border, and then it's just finding its way up here. That we're going to need better law enforcement to try and deal with that. And how is that going to get done when they had to cut a sheriff loose because the budget is so... A deputy, I'm sorry, not a sheriff, but a deputy got cut loose. So that takes away from the law enforcement in trying to combat anything of that nature. We're going to need help from the community. And when you see something wrong, you voice your opinion. You make a sound decision to make a call and try and get help to take care of that problem. For me, it just seems like it's a disease that needs to be stopped in its tracks. So prevention is way better than cure. And if we can get it off the streets, then it needs to be taken off the streets by whatever means necessary.
Okay. How about Lake District Health?
The health thing.
Any comments about the hospital and how things are going there?
Well, based upon and a nurse told me this, I couldn't believe it, that the billing department was fired for billing insurance companies. And I've worked in the insurance company myself when I was
outsourced, wasn't it?
It was outsourced, but the billers themselves were fired. All right, and that's just the nicest way I can put that. Those jobs were shipped to India, and they're back now? Okay, they're back. Paloma says they're back.
One of the ladies that worked in that department created her own billing company, and what I've been told, they have taken back the billing department. The CFO was from India, and he's now gone too.
They don't have a CFO now.
Yes. And things are looking pretty good from what I've been told, but time will tell.
Well, another thing is that I believe that when we're talking about our county hospital, I think that it's very important that if I were a commissioner, I would want to be knowing what's going on over there. I think it's a responsibility. I don't know how much authority they have, but I would assume that they have some sort of input authority. And when these decisions are made to cut people loose, that we need to really take a close look at that and figure out why. Now, they may say, well, it was going to save us money. But is it really going to save us money? What's the cost of saving a few bucks? You put people out of work. These people are not spending their funding, their monies.
Or the senior home. There's no senior home, so now...
There's no senior home.
If you have to put your parents in a senior home, that it's 2 hours away or more.
We need to look at that and find out what we can do to try and open it back up.
And I do want to be fair, because I've been to some of the meetings, and every meeting I've been at, one of the commissioners has been at the board meetings for the hospital. And I will find out more. You can go to the budget committee meeting for the hospital is 5 o'clock on Wednesday. I'm on that committee, so I know that. But if anybody wants to go, it's an open meeting. But all right, so let's wrap things up. How about... I'm trying to think. I had one. Homeless people, houseless people has been an issue in other parts of the state. Do you think it's an issue here in Lakeview?
In Lakeview, no. There's, from my understanding, and I've spoke to a lot of people, there isn't a homeless situation here in Lakeview.
When you go to Eugene or Portland, you can't miss it. Go ahead.
Back in 2019, the city of Lakeview did an assessment, and their assessment on homelessness was that by the year 2030, Lakeview would have a minus 3% homelessness.
Which means, so what does that mean?
We don't have any homelessness.
Yeah, it's amazing compared to other parts of the country and state. Yeah. So
wait until the homeless housing gets put together and HUD Housing has a voucher. If you're homeless anywhere in the United States, you can get a voucher and you can come to Lakeview and live in that new subdivision or that new housing project that's being built.
Is that the one out by the baseball
It's
fields?
the one the city did, yes.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So that brings up problems in itself. And what are we inviting to come here? It's maybe a can of worms. I don't know.
Well, maybe they can work at the mill when they get here.
That would be a good idea if they want to.
So I've asked each commissioner this question over the last 3 years as they've run at different times.
Right.
So I'm just going to use it as a barometer kind of for some people, and you can answer it or not. Do you think Trump won the last election fairly? Do you think Trump lost the last election fairly and Biden won?
Biden did not win that election. It's a farce, and Trump is the real president.
Okay. Anything else that I haven't asked you about and that you want to share about anything?
Well, I'm sure all the folks out there got my brochure, and if we take a quick gander at that, you can look at my pledge, which states...
do your pledge, because we should have started with that, but go ahead.
Okay. The pledge, my pledge, is to bring back the timber industry by eliminating state and federal overreach, and we kind of discussed that, on county lands and promoting projects to ensure health, safety, and welfare. We also want to create a charter for Lake County, and there's things that we can implement into there, which we talked about with some of your students with regards to, for example, taxes on homes. And this is just an idea, this doesn't mean this is going to happen, but things we could put into a charter is when you buy your home at X percent, that percentage rate does not change over the period of the life of your living in that home. When you sell the home, then the interest rate will go to the current rate, and that individual will pay it over time. Now, what they did in California was they used Prop 13, which said that it was only the tax on a home could only go up, I think it was something like 1.5% per year. So I think that's a great thing for the residents of Lake County, and that's just one thing. We could also put in the county charter about schooling, what the parents want for their school district to do, what they don't want them to do, and there's other things we could also put into there. But again, this really falls on the community as a whole, the parents, the people who live here, what they want their commissioners to do and not do. Okay?
Now, one of the things you brought up, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is you want term limits on county commissioners.
Correct.
So you said 2 terms, and then you have to sit out, but then you could run again.
Right. Kind of like what the state governor does, the president does. And our belief is that if we have somebody who just constantly is sitting there and sitting there and sitting there, they become, and I'm not saying any of these guys are, but over time they become tyrannical by nature, okay? And this is one way of being able to stop that, is by you take a term limit, you agree to it, and this could be even in the county charter, that you agree to a term limit, and that's it. Then you step out, you take a 4-year break, and if you're interested in running again, then you run again.
Now, they could step out and run for something else, too.
Sure.
What about, now, another one of your bullet points here is transparency in county government. What would you do differently than they do now?
I would be, they have a Facebook meeting or a Facebook page where they show everything that is going on within the commissioners' meeting. All right. A lot of folks, maybe not a lot of folks, but some folks may not have the ability or a computer to look at all that. I would put it out in the newspaper. Make sure that was in the newspaper as far as what's agreed upon or voted on, what is not voted on, why I voted against something, and give my explanation as to why I voted against it. And there's other avenues where maybe we could get on the radio station down in Lakeview and say, these are the situations that came up. The issues were this, and I voted against it or I voted for it.
A weekly little talk show with the commissioners just explaining what they're doing. I like that.
Right, yeah. So I believe that if we keep it open to the public, they should know exactly what their local government is doing at all times.
Okay. So anything else?
Well, just if we take a look at the brochure real quick, it goes through my employment history, and I was enlisted in the Navy from 75 to 79. I'm 60% service connected. I worked for DOD, Department of Defense in Long Beach Naval Shipyard on some massively beautiful ships from 81 to 90. I was self-employed in Australia from 91 to 99. And then I worked at the VA in Long Beach, California, which is the Veterans Administration, helping our veterans and making sure that their co-pays and stuff like that was billed properly and their insurance was billed properly. And I know how to appropriate funds to the correct and proper place where those funds need to go. All right? So you've got my education, AA degree, BS degree in political science with emphasis in constitutional law. That was also at the California State University of Long Beach. And I also entered the master's program and resigned my tenure there at California State University because I could see the writing on the wall with something massively going wrong. And 2 years later, that proved to be true when we had the CCP virus attack us. So I came to the right place.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you, sir.
Lake County. All right. Well, I think that'll do it. I've been talking to Ed Mudd, and he's running for County Commissioner, position 1, and that's against Barry Schulenberger. The election is about a week and a day away, so on the 21st, Tuesday the 21st. But in Oregon, you have to get your ballot in, vote by mail, or drop it off. And you could probably mail it up till Friday, I would think. You'd still safely get it in by Tuesday. But after that, I would go to one of the drop-off boxes there at our own little community center here. And out in North Valley, they've got a drop-off there. And, of course, there's some in Lakeview also. And I guess probably Adele and some other places. But just about anywhere, there's one nearby to get to. So no excuse to not vote and get that done, because you can't complain if you don't vote. Well, people do, but anyway. All right. Thanks again, Mr. Mudd, for being here.
Thank you very much for bringing me on board.
All right. Let's get back to some music here.